Bye, loser.
One day, you'll realize the real loser is staring back at you in the mirror.
The protein powder exploded across my kitchen counter like white powder at a DEA bust. And I knew right then that my marriage was as dead as my wife's old appetite for carbs. "Nick, you're being paranoid," Emily said, not looking up from her phone as she scooped the vanilla-flavored dust into her shaker bottle. At 41, she had the body of a 25-year-old Instagram model and the attention span of a goldfish when it came to our conversations. 6 months ago, she couldn't run to the mailbox without wheezing. Now she was doing CrossFit at dawn and posting thirst traps at midnight. Paranoid. I leaned against the granite island we'd bought during happier, fatter times. "Em, you've been at the gym more than you've been home. Last week you missed Josh's baseball game because you had to do emergency cardio with your trainer." She finally looked up, her newly sculpted face arranged in an expression of wounded innocence that would have fooled me 3 months ago, before I started paying attention, before I started noticing things. "Trent says consistency is key. You wouldn't understand. You've never committed to anything physical in your life." Trent, always freaking Trent. "I'm Nick Lawson, 44 years old, and until recently I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I run operations for a mid-sized tech company in suburban Dallas, make decent money, drive a sensible Honda, and used to have what I thought was a solid marriage to my college sweetheart. We've got 2 kids, Josh, 17, and built like a linebacker, but with the personality of a philosophy major, and Molly, 16, who inherited my sarcasm and her mother's stubborn streak. Emily used to be soft around the edges, literally and figuratively. She baked cookies, drove carpool, and complained about her mom bod while doing absolutely nothing about it. I loved her exactly as she was. Then she discovered Fit Life Transformation Camp, and everything went to hell in a designer gym bag. "Where are you going?" I asked as she headed toward the garage, shaker bottle in one hand, phone in the other. "Meeting Tasha for a workout. We're trying this new HATE class." Tasha Morrison, Emily's best friend since high school and current enabler-in-chief. If Emily was the match, Tasha was the gasoline. It's 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. So normal people don't work out at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Normal people watch Netflix and complain about their jobs. Emily's laugh had a sharp edge that could have cut glass. "Maybe that's your problem, Nick. You're obsessed with being normal. Some of us want more." The garage door rumbled open and she was gone, leaving me standing in my kitchen surrounded by protein powder residue and the growing certainty that my wife was screwing her personal trainer. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and settled into my home office, a converted bedroom that Emily had started calling Nick's cave with increasing disdain. My laptop hummed to life, and I did what any self-respecting tech professional would do when faced with suspicious behavior. I investigated. Emily's Instagram had exploded from 43 followers, mostly family, to over 2,000 in 4 months. Her posts were a carefully curated mix of workout videos, motivational quotes, and photos that showed off her new body from every conceivable angle. The comments were a mix of supportive women and thirsty men, but one name appeared more frequently than others. At Trent Fitzhugh, Trent Morrison, 26 years old according to his bio, which also claimed he was a transformation specialist and life coach. His profile picture showed the kind of abs that belonged in a medical textbook, and his posts were split between workout videos and inspirational Bs about living your best life and breaking free from limiting relationships. That last one made my beer taste like battery acid. I clicked through Emily's followers and found a rabbit hole that led straight to Crazy Town. There was a whole network of fit life people, mostly women in their 30s and 40s who'd undergone dramatic physical transformations and seemed to have developed a collective case of amnesia about their previous lives. They called themselves Fit Fam and posted constantly about toxic relationships and people who don't support your journey. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete Kowalski, my neighbor and one of the few people in this suburban hellscape who still made sense. "Your wife's car is at the Marriott downtown. Thought you should know." Pete was a retired Dallas PD detective who spent his golden years gardening and keeping tabs on neighborhood drama. He'd been watching Emily's increasingly erratic behavior with the professional interest of someone who'd spent 30 years cataloging human bees. The Marriott was 15 miles from any gym Emily had ever mentioned. I finished my beer and opened another one, then started doing what I do best, gathering data. Emily's phone was linked to our family plan, which meant I could see her location history if I knew where to look. And brother, did I ever know where to look? 3 months of data painted a picture clearer than Emily's new Instagram selfies. The gym visits were real, but they were bookended by stops at hotels, restaurants, and an apartment complex in Uptown that definitely wasn't Tasha's place. The apartment was registered to one Trent Morrison. My wife wasn't just getting fit, she was getting laid. The front door slammed at 11:47 p.m., followed by the sound of Emily's heels clicking across our hardwood floors. She appeared in my office doorway, cheeks flushed and hair slightly mussed, despite having allegedly spent the last 3 hours doing burpees. "You're still up? Couldn't sleep. How was the workout?" "Intense." Tasha pushed me harder than usual. She was already backing away from the door. "I'm going to shower." "Em, wait." I turned my chair to face her. "We need to talk." Her body language shifted, shoulders squaring like she was preparing for battle. "About what?" "About us. About whatever this is." I gestured vaguely at her transformed appearance, her defensive posture, the space that seemed to grow wider between us every day. "This is me being happy, Nick. This is me taking care of myself for the first time in 20 years. I'm sorry if that threatens you." "It doesn't threaten me, it confuses me. 6 months ago, you were content with our life. You loved our family, our routine, our Saturday morning pancakes. Now you act like all of that was some kind of prison sentence." Emily's expression softened for just a moment, and I caught a glimpse of the woman I'd married. Then the mask slipped back into place. "People change, Nick. People grow. Maybe you should try it sometime." She disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with my beer and my suspicions. 20 minutes later, I heard the shower running and the faint sound of her voice. She was on the phone, speaking in the low, intimate tones she used to reserve for me. I opened my laptop and started planning. If Emily wanted to play games, I'd show her what a professional game looked like. The next morning brought the kind of suburban normalcy that felt increasingly surreal. Emily made her protein smoothie. Josh grunted his way through breakfast, and Molly provided running commentary on the social dynamics of junior year, while consuming enough caffeine to power a small aircraft. "Mom, are you coming to my debate tournament Friday?" Molly asked, not looking up from her phone. Emily paused in her smoothie preparation. "When is it again?" "I've told you 3 times. It's the regional qualifier. The one I've been preparing for all semester?" "Right, of course. I'll check my schedule." Molly's eyes met mine across the kitchen table, and I saw my own frustration reflected there. 6 months ago, Emily would have had the date circled on 3 different calendars and would have been stress-baking cookies for the entire debate team. "I'll be there," I told Molly. "We can grab dinner after and celebrate your inevitable victory." "Thanks, Dad." The relief in her voice was heartbreaking. Emily's phone buzzed, and her face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in months. She read the message, typed back quickly, then grabbed her gym bag. "I'm meeting my trainer early today. There's leftover pasta in the fridge for dinner. What time will you be home?" I asked. "Not sure. Depends on how the session goes." She kissed the kids goodbye, quick, distracted pecks, and barely glanced in my direction before heading out. The garage door was closing before I realized she hadn't answered my question. "Dad, is Mom having a midlife crisis?" Josh asked, speaking more words than he'd strung together in weeks. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged, suddenly fascinated by his cereal. "She's just different. Like, she used to care about stuff, our stuff. Now she only cares about her workouts and her phone and looking perfect all the time." Molly nodded vigorously. "It's like she's cosplaying as an influencer. Yesterday, she spent 20 minutes taking pictures of her salad. It's weird. My kids weren't stupid. They'd noticed the same changes I had. The gradual erosion of the woman who'd raised them into someone who seemed to view family life as an inconvenient obstacle to her fitness journey. After dropping the kids at school, I made a detour past the gym Emily claimed to frequent. Her car wasn't in the parking lot, but I hadn't really expected it to be. According to the location data I'd pulled the night before, she spent most of her gym time at locations that had nothing to do with fitness. My office was a glass-walled cube in a building that looked like every other tech company in North Dallas, all chrome and motivational posters and the faint smell of energy drinks. I'd been working there for 8 years, long enough to become the guy people came to when they needed something fixed, found, or forgotten. "You look like crap," said Janet Chen, my closest work friend and the only person in the building who could make our ancient server architecture bend to her will. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." "Trouble in paradise?" She settled into the chair across from my desk with the casual ease of someone who'd been listening to my problems for the better part of a decade. Janet was 42, divorced, and had exactly 0 patience for relationship drama, which made her the perfect sounding board for my current situation. "Emily's having an affair." "I know." I stared at her. "You know?" "Nick, you've been walking around here like a zombie for 2 months. Your wife went from soccer mom to fitness model overnight, and you've been checking your phone every 30 seconds like you're expecting bad news. It doesn't take a detective to connect the dots. Why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? Hey, your wife's probably cheating on you isn't exactly casual Friday conversation. She had a point. I pulled up Emily's Instagram on my computer and turned the screen toward Janet. What do you think of this? Janet scrolled through the posts, her expression growing increasingly incredulous. Jesus, Nick, she's basically advertising herself. Look at this caption. Finally living my truth and embracing my authentic self. That's breakup language. She's telling the world she's available. She wants an open marriage. She what? She brought it up 3 weeks ago. Said she was exploring new aspects of herself and thought we should both have the freedom to do the same. Janet's laugh was sharp and humorless. Let me guess, she wants the freedom to screw her trainer while keeping you around to pay the mortgage and handle the kids. That's pretty much exactly what she wants. What did you tell her? I told her no. I told her I married her because I wanted to be with her, not because I wanted to be with her and whoever else caught her eye. How'd that go over? About as well as you'd expect. She said I was being controlling and that I didn't support her growth as a person. Janet handed my phone back with the expression of someone who just witnessed a car accident. You need a lawyer. I need evidence first. If this goes to court, I want to make sure I have everything documented. What kind of evidence are you looking for? I'd been thinking about that question all night. Photos, messages, financial records. Proof that she's been lying about where she goes and what she does. Proof that she's prioritizing her affair over our family. That sounds like a lot of work. I'm good at work. Janet studied my face for a long moment. You're really going to war over this, aren't you? She fired the first shot when she decided our marriage was negotiable. I'm just returning fire. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and system updates, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about Emily's patterns, her routines, the digital footprint she left everywhere she went. By the time I left the office, I had a plan. Step 1 was a conversation with Pete Kowalski. I found him in his backyard, tending to a garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Pete had the kind of retirement most people dreamed about, comfortable pension, paid-off house, and enough time to pursue hobbies that didn't involve spreadsheets or conference calls. Nick. He looked up from his tomatoes with genuine pleasure. How's it going? It's going. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Yesterday, you texted me about Emily's car being at the Marriott. How did you happen to know that? Pete's expression grew serious. You want the truth? I want the truth. I've been keeping an eye on things. Call it professional curiosity. Your wife's behavior patterns changed pretty dramatically over the past few months, and old habits die hard. What kind of patterns? She leaves the house at specific times, takes routes that don't make sense if she's really going where she says she's going, and her car shows up in places that don't match her story. Yesterday wasn't the first time I've seen her at that hotel. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How many times? At least a dozen over the past 2 months. Always on weekdays, always for 2 to 3 hours. Jesus. Pete set down his gardening tools and gave me the kind of look he probably used to give suspects in interrogation rooms. What are you planning to do about it? I'm still figuring that out. You need advice from someone who's been down this road? I nodded. Document everything. Keep records of her lies, her absences, her behavior changes. If this ends up in divorce court, you want to be the one with the evidence, not the one making accusations you can't prove. What about the kids? That's the hard part. They're old enough to see what's happening, but they're not old enough to understand why. Your job is to protect them while you figure out how to protect yourself. Any other wisdom? Pete smiled grimly. Yeah, don't let her know you're onto her until you're ready to make your move. The element of surprise is the only advantage you have right now. I thanked Pete and headed home, my mind churning with possibilities. Emily's car was already in the garage when I arrived, which meant she'd knocking me home for the first time in weeks. I found her in the kitchen, meal prepping with the focused intensity of a surgeon. Containers of grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and brown rice were arranged across the counter in perfect portions. Hey, I said, how was your day? Good. Productive. Trent thinks I'm ready to start competing. Competing in what? Fitness competitions. There's a whole circuit. Women our age who've transformed their bodies and want to show what they've accomplished. The idea of Emily posing in a bikini on stage while strange men judged her body made my skin crawl, but I kept my expression neutral. That sounds like a big commitment. It is, but Trent thinks I have real potential. He says I have the kind of dedication that separates winners from wannabes, Trent says. Trent thinks, if I had to hear that a-hole's name one more time, I was going to lose my mind. Where would these competitions be? All over. Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. Some of the bigger ones are in Vegas and California. That's a lot of travel. Emily's hand stilled on the container she was sealing. Is that a problem? I'm just wondering how it fits with everything else. The kids' schedules? Your responsibilities here? My responsibilities? Her voice had taken on the sharp edge I'd been hearing more and more lately. What responsibilities, Nick? Driving carpool? Making dinner? Doing laundry? Those aren't responsibilities, they're chores, and they're not my whole identity. I never said they were. You didn't have to. It's written all over your face every time I mention doing something for myself. She was wrong, but I wasn't going to win this argument. Not tonight, and not without showing my hand. I want you to be happy, Em. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about what that looks like. Her expression softened slightly. I am happy. For the first time in years, I'm really happy. I just wish you could be happy for me. She finished her meal prep and headed upstairs, leaving me alone with the growing certainty that the woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The question was whether I wanted to fight for what we'd had or accept what we'd become. By the time I went to bed, I'd made my decision. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that made living in Texas almost bearable. Emily was already gone when I woke up. Another early session with Trent, according to the note she'd left on the kitchen counter. The note was written in her careful handwriting, but it felt impersonal, like a memo from a stranger. Molly was stress-eating toast while reviewing her debate notes, and Josh was moving through his morning routine with the mechanical precision of someone operating on autopilot. Big day, I said, ruffling Molly's hair as I passed her chair. If by big you mean potentially life-altering in terms of college applications and my entire future, then yes, it's a big day. She looked up at me with Emily's eyes, but my tendency toward dramatic overstatement. No pressure or anything. You're going to destroy them. Your argument about social media regulation is bulletproof. You think so? I know so. You've been practicing on me for weeks, and I'm a much tougher audience than a bunch of high school judges. Josh snorted into his cereal. Dad, you let her win every argument. You're not tough. I let her win because she's usually right. There's a difference. Molly beamed, and for a moment the kitchen felt normal again. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Running late? Won't make it to Molly's tournament? Tell her I'm sorry. The message hit me like a physical blow. Molly had been talking about this tournament for months. She'd restructured her entire semester around preparing for it, and Emily was going to miss it because she was running late from her screw session with her trainer. What's wrong? Molly asked, reading my expression. I made a split-second decision that would probably haunt me later. Nothing's wrong. Your mom will be there tonight, and so will I. We'll both be cheering you on. It wasn't technically a lie. Emily would be there, even if she didn't know it yet. After dropping the kids at school, I drove to the office and called in a favor. Janet owed me for covering her workload during her divorce 2 years ago, and it was time to collect. I need you to help me catch my wife in the act, I said without preamble. Good morning to you too, Nick. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Sorry, I'm a little focused right now. A little? You look like you haven't slept in a week. What do you need? I explained my plan, which was elegant in its simplicity. Emily thought she was being clever by lying about her schedule, but she'd forgotten that I was married to technology long before I was married to her. You want me to create a fake social media profile? Janet asked. Not fake, just optimized. I need someone who looks like she'd fit into Emily's fitness world. Someone Trent would be attracted to. You want me to catfish your wife's boyfriend? I want you to gather evidence. There's a difference. Janet sighed. This is either going to be brilliant or it's going to blow up in your face spectacularly. Probably both. We spent the next 2 hours crafting the perfect digital honey trap. Janet's fake profile belonged to Jessica Martinez, a recently divorced 38-year-old from Austin who was looking to get back in shape and meet new people. The photos were borrowed from a fitness model's portfolio. Nothing too obvious, but attractive enough to get Trent's attention. He's already liked 3 of her posts, Janet said, monitoring the profile from her desk. That was fast. Guys like this are predictable. They see an attractive woman showing interest in fitness, and they assume she's showing interest in them. Within an hour, Trent had sent Jessica a direct message introducing himself and offering his services as a personal trainer. The message was professionally worded, but included enough personal details to make it clear he was fishing for more than a client relationship. "He's good at this," Janet admitted grudgingly. The message sounds helpful and professional, but there's definitely an undertone. What kind of undertone? The kind that says, "I'm available for more than just fitness advice if you're interested." Perfect. Jessica responded with enthusiasm, mentioning that she'd heard great things about his work and would love to meet for a consultation. Trent suggested meeting at a coffee shop near his gym that afternoon. "Are you really going to go?" Janet asked. "I'm really going to go. What if he recognizes you?" "He's never seen me. Emily's kept her two worlds completely separate. What if someone else recognizes you? Then I'll deal with it." Janet shook her head. "You're playing with fire." "Emily started the fire. I'm just adding fuel." The coffee shop was one of those aggressively hip places that served drinks with names like The Enlightened Warrior and Chakra Cleanse. I arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a table with a clear view of the entrance, then settled in to wait. Trent Morrison walked in at exactly 3 o'clock, and I had to admit he was impressive in person. 6'2", maybe 200 pounds of lean muscle, with the kind of confidence that came from knowing you were the best-looking person in any room. He was wearing a fitted black t-shirt that showcased his physique and jeans that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He looked around the coffee shop with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to being noticed, then checked his phone. I watched him type a message, probably to Jessica, letting her know he'd arrived. I waited 5 more minutes, then sent a message from Jessica's account, apologizing for running late and asking if they could reschedule for next week. Trent's disappointment was visible from across the room, but the real payoff came 20 minutes later when Emily walked into the coffee shop. She spotted Trent immediately and made her way over to his table with the kind of casual confidence that suggested this wasn't their first rendezvous. She was wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly gym membership, and she looked incredible. They didn't kiss, too public, too risky, but the closeness between them was obvious to anyone who knew what to look for. The way she touched his arm while talking, the way he leaned in close to hear her whisper, the way they both laughed at something that probably wasn't that funny. I took photos with my phone, being careful to stay hidden behind my laptop screen. The pictures weren't perfect, but they were clear enough to show Emily and Trent together in a context that had nothing to do with fitness training. After 30 minutes, they left together. I waited until they were gone, then followed at a distance. They drove to Trent's apartment complex in separate cars, parking in spaces that weren't visible from the street. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to see what happened next to know what was happening. Instead, I drove to Molly's school and spent the next 3 hours watching my daughter demolish the competition in her debate tournament. She was fierce, articulate, and completely in her element. When they announced her as the regional qualifier, she looked into the audience and her face fell slightly when she realized Emily wasn't there. "Mom got held up at work," I lied smoothly. "But she's so proud of you." "We both are." Molly's smile was worth every lie I'd have to tell to protect her from the truth about what her mother was really doing. We went to dinner at her favorite restaurant, just the 3 of us, and for 2 hours I pretended everything was normal. Josh told stories about his cross-country team, Molly recounted every moment of her tournament victory, and I played the role of proud father while my marriage disintegrated in real time. Emily was home when we returned, curled up on the couch with her laptop and a protein shake. "How did it go?" she asked Molly. "I won regionals. I'm going to state." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm sorry I missed it." "Where were you?" Molly asked. Emily's pause was barely perceptible. "I had a training session that ran long. Then I had to handle some paperwork for the competition I'm entering." 3 lies in 1 sentence. I was almost impressed. "What kind of paperwork?" I asked casually. "Registration forms, medical clearances, that sort of thing. It's more complicated than you'd think." "I'm sure it is." Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, Emily and I found ourselves alone in our bedroom for the first time in weeks. She was sitting at her vanity, going through her skincare routine with the kind of methodical precision she applied to everything these days. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" "About us. About where this is heading." She met my eyes in the mirror. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you missed our daughter's biggest academic achievement of the year because you were too busy with your trainer. I told you it was unavoidable." "Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've decided your fitness journey is more important than your family." Emily turned around to face me, and I saw something flicker across her expression. Guilt, maybe. Or recognition that she'd been caught in a lie. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked Josh about school? When's the last time you cooked dinner for this family? When's the last time you and I had a conversation that didn't involve your workout schedule? You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. You've checked out, Emily. Physically, emotionally, completely. You're living in our house, but you're not part of our family anymore. For a moment, I thought she might break down. I thought she might admit what she was doing, and we could find a way to work through it. Instead, her expression hardened. Maybe the problem isn't that I've changed. Maybe the problem is that you haven't. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're exactly the same person you were when we got married. Same job, same hobbies, same complaints, same boring routine. I've grown, Nick. I've become someone better. Maybe you should try it sometime. The words hit their target with surgical precision. Every insecurity I'd ever had about being ordinary, about being the kind of man who peaked in middle management and suburban mediocrity, came flooding back. So what are you saying? That you're too good for me now? I'm saying we want different things. What do you want, Emily? She was quiet for a long time, staring at her reflection in the vanity mirror. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I want to feel alive again. And I make you feel dead? You make me feel safe. And I'm tired of being safe. There it was, the truth, finally, laid out between us like a roadmap to divorce court. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know, but I did know. I knew exactly what was going to happen because I was going to make it happen. Emily wanted to feel alive. I was going to show her what alive really looked like, starting tomorrow. Saturday morning brought rain and the kind of gray skies that matched my mood perfectly. Emily was gone before I woke up. Another early session, another lie, another nail in the coffin of our marriage. But this time I was ready for her. I'd spent half the night planning my next move and the other half lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how 20 years of marriage had come to this. The woman sleeping next to me was a stranger wearing my wife's face, and I was done pretending otherwise. The kids were still asleep when I made my coffee and settled into my home office. Emily's laptop was in the kitchen, forgotten in her rush to meet Trent. She'd left it open, which was either careless or a subconscious cry for help. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Emily's email was a goldmine of evidence. Messages from Trent that started professional and gradually became personal, then intimate, then explicit. Plans for weekend getaways disguised as training camps, hotel reservations. Even a message thread about the best ways to transition out of a limiting relationship. But the worst part was the messages to her fitness friends, the ones where she talked about me like I was a burden she was trying to shed. She called me comfortable but boring in one message, a good father but not much of a husband in another. The final message, sent just 3 days ago, was a response to someone asking if she was planning to leave me. Working up the courage. It's complicated with kids. Working up the courage. Like our marriage was a Band-Aid she needed to rip off. I forwarded the most damaging messages to my personal email, then closed the laptop and tried to figure out how to feel. Angry seemed too simple. Hurt seemed too weak. What I felt was something closer to relief, the kind you get when a long period of uncertainty finally ends. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete. Emily's car is at the Marriott again? Same room as last time? Same room. They had a regular room. The casual closeness of that detail made my stomach turn. I texted back, thanks. Can you do me a favor? Name it. Keep an eye on the kids today. I have some business to handle. You got it. Be careful, Nick. I drove to the Marriott with no clear plan beyond confirming what I already knew. The hotel was one of those generic business class places that catered to traveling salesmen and people having affairs. Emily's Honda was parked next to Trent's ridiculous red Mustang in the back corner of the lot, as far from the main entrance as possible. Room 237. I'd gotten the number from Pete, who'd gotten it from a contact in hotel security. The benefits of having a retired cop for a neighbor. I stood outside that door for 10 minutes, listening to the muffled sounds from inside and trying to decide what to do next. I could knock. I could walk away. I could call Emily's phone and watch her scramble to explain why she wasn't at the gym. Instead, I took photos of the cars, the room number, the Do Not Disturb sign hanging from the door handle. Evidence for later. Then I drove to the gym Emily claimed to frequent and had a conversation with the manager, a friendly woman named Sarah, who was more than happy to discuss their training programs. I'm thinking about getting my wife some additional sessions with her trainer, I said. Trent Morrison. She's been working with him for a few months. Sarah's expression grew confused. I'm sorry, but we don't have a trainer named Trent. Are you sure you have the right gym? Maybe I'm mistaken. My wife, Emily Lawson, has been coming here regularly. Emily Lawson. Sarah consulted her computer. I don't show anyone by that name in our system. Are you sure she's a member here? She wasn't. Emily had never set foot in this gym, which meant every story she'd told about her training sessions was a lie. The elaborate fiction she'd constructed was falling apart, and she didn't even know it yet. I thanked Sarah and drove home, my mind churning with possibilities. Emily's web of lies was more extensive than I'd imagined, which meant her betrayal ran deeper than just an affair. She'd been living a completely fabricated life for months. The kids were awake when I got back, moving through their Saturday routines with the casual efficiency of teenagers who'd learned not to depend on their mother's presence. Josh was making pancakes while Molly provided commentary on the various social dramas unfolding in her text messages. Where's Mom? Molly asked without looking up from her phone. Training session, I said automatically. She's always training now. It's like she lives at that gym. Maybe she's training to be a gym, Josh suggested deadpan. Like her final form is just becoming a building full of exercise equipment. Despite everything, I laughed. That would explain the protein powder everywhere. And the way she talks about carbs like they eliminated her family, Molly added. We spent the morning together, the three of us, doing the kind of normal family stuff that had become increasingly rare. Josh taught me his pancake technique, which involved far more butter than seemed medically advisable. Molly practiced her state debate presentation, using Josh and me as her audience. For a few hours, I almost forgot about hotel rooms and lying wives in the slow-motion collapse of my marriage. Then Emily came home. She walked through the front door at 2:30 p.m., gym bag slung over her shoulder, looking like she'd just finished an intense workout. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her cheeks were flushed, and she was wearing the kind of athletic wear that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. How was training? I asked casually. Brutal. Trent pushed me harder than usual today. I can barely move. The lies came so easily now. She'd perfected the art of deception, crafting stories that sounded plausible and delivered them with the confidence of someone who'd never been questioned. What did you work on? Upper body strength. He's got me on a new program to build muscle definition for the competition. Which gym did you go to? The question hung in the air for a beat too long. Emily's expression flickered just slightly before settling back into casual confidence. The usual place. Why? Just curious. I was thinking about joining, getting back in shape myself. That's a great idea. You should definitely do that. But not with her trainer, I noticed. Not at her gym. She wasn't offering to introduce me to Trent or suggesting we work out together. She wanted to keep her two worlds separate. Maybe you could introduce me to Trent, get me started on a program. He's pretty booked up right now. I could ask around, see if any of the other trainers have openings. More lies, smooth, practiced, delivered without hesitation. That's okay, I'll figure something out. Emily headed upstairs to shower, and I made my decision. I was done being the clueless husband. It was time to flip the script. I waited until she was in the shower, then called the number I'd found in her phone for Trent Morrison. Hey, beautiful, he answered on the second ring. Miss me already? Actually, this is Emily's husband. The silence on the other end was deafening. When Trent finally spoke, his voice had lost all of its cocky confidence. What? I said this is Emily's husband, Nick Lawson. I think we need to have a conversation. Look, man, I don't know what you think. I think you've been screwing my wife for the past 3 months. I think you've been helping her lie to me and our children. And I think it's time we discussed what happens next. This is crazy. Emily and I have a professional relationship. I'm her trainer. Which gym do you work at, Trent? Another pause. What? Simple question. Which gym employs you as a trainer? Because I've been calling around and nobody seems to know who you are. I'm freelance. Freelance, right. Is that what you call it when you meet married women at hotels and help them destroy their families? You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Help me understand why my wife has been lying to me and our children so she can spend her afternoons in hotel rooms with you. Trent's voice took on a defensive edge. Emily's not happy, man. She hasn't been happy for years. She's finally figuring out who she really is, what she really wants. And what she really wants is you. She wants to feel alive again. She wants to be with someone who appreciates the work she's put into herself, the person she's become. The person she's become is a liar and a cheat, That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that my kids wonder why their mother doesn't care about their lives anymore? Is it fair that I've been working my A off to support a family while my wife is off playing house with some wannabe fitness influencer? Look, I never meant for it to happen this way, but it did happen this way. And now we have to deal with the consequences. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my wife. I can't do that. Why not? Because I love her. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because I was surprised, but because of how casually he said them. Like love was a simple thing. Like it didn't come with 20 years of history and 2 children and a mortgage and 1,000 small compromises. You love her. I do. You love a married woman with 2 kids and a life that doesn't include you. Her life is going to include me. She's leaving you. Is she? Because she hasn't mentioned that to me. She's working up the courage. It's complicated. There were those words again. Working up the courage. Like I was some kind of obstacle to be overcome rather than a person whose life was being destroyed. Well, here's something that's not complicated, I said. If you don't stop seeing my wife, I'm going to make your life very difficult. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. I have photos of you 2 together. I have copies of your messages. I have evidence of your affair that would be very interesting to your clients, your landlord, and anyone else who might be curious about your character. You can't do that. Watch me. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. The shower was still running upstairs, which meant Emily hadn't heard my conversation. Good. I wasn't ready to confront her yet, but I was getting close. Sunday morning brought the kind of artificial family normalcy that felt like a performance we were all getting tired of. Emily made her protein smoothie, Josh buried himself in his phone, and Molly provided running commentary on the various social media dramas unfolding in her extended network of teenage acquaintances. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and watching my wife lie with increasing skill and decreasing conscience. I'm meeting Tasha for brunch, Emily announced, not looking up from her phone. Then we're going to check out that new yoga studio. Tasha Morrison, Emily's best friend and chief enabler, the same Tasha who'd been covering for Emily's affair and helping her craft increasingly elaborate lies about her whereabouts. Sounds fun, I said. Tell Tasha I said hi. Emily's fingers paused over her phone screen for just a moment. I will. But she wouldn't because she wasn't meeting Tasha. According to the location tracking I'd set up on our family plan, Emily's phone was currently at the same apartment complex where Trent lived. She'd been there since 8 a.m., which meant she'd left the house early to avoid questions about her plans. The kids finished breakfast and disappeared to their respective rooms, leaving Emily and me alone in the kitchen. She was still typing on her phone, probably coordinating with Trent about their day together. Em, I said quietly. Look at me. She glanced up, and for just a moment I saw the woman I'd married. The same green eyes, the same slightly crooked smile, the same face I'd been waking up next to for 20 years. But there was something else there now, something guarded and distant that hadn't been there before. Are you happy? I asked. The question seemed to catch her off guard. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. Are you happy with your life, with our marriage, with the person you've become? Emily set down her phone and really looked at me for the first time in weeks. Why are you asking me that? Because I love you, because we have 2 kids together and 20 years of history, because I want to understand what's happening to us. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know if I know how to be happy anymore. What does that mean? It means I spent so many years being what everyone else needed me to be that I forgot who I actually am. I was your wife, their mother, the PTA volunteer, the carpool driver, but I was never just me. And now you're trying to figure out who just you is? Something like that. I wanted to ask her if just her included lying to her family and sleeping with her trainer. I wanted to ask her if finding herself required destroying everyone else in the process. Instead, I asked the question that mattered most. Do you want to save our marriage? Emily's pause told me everything I needed to know before she said a word. I don't know if our marriage can be saved. Because you don't want it to be saved, or because you think it's too broken to fix? Because I'm not the same person who married you, and I don't think you can love who I'm becoming. Try me. She smiled sadly. You wouldn't understand. Help me understand. But she was already standing up, grabbing her purse and keys. I'm going to be late meeting Tasha. Another lie, delivered with the casual ease of someone who'd perfected the art of deception. After she left, I called Pete. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me, I said. Shoot. How bad does this look from the outside? The affair, the lies, the way Emily's been behaving? Pete was quiet for a moment. You want the truth? I want the truth. It looks like your wife has completely checked out of her marriage and is just going through the motions until she works up the nerve to leave. It looks like she's prioritizing her affair over her family, and it looks like she doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. That's what I was afraid of. But here's the thing, Nick. It also looks like you're a good father who's trying to hold his family together while his wife destroys it. If this ends up in court, that's going to matter. I'm not sure I want it to end up in court. What do you want? That was the million-dollar question. What did I want? I wanted my wife back, but the woman I'd married didn't exist anymore. I wanted my family intact, but Emily had already broken it. I wanted to go back to the way things were, but that was impossible. I want her to choose, I said finally. I want her to decide what matters more, her affair or her family. And if she chooses the affair, then at least I'll know where I stand. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done in 20 years of marriage. I followed my wife. Emily's car was parked outside a trendy apartment complex in uptown Dallas, the kind of place that marketed itself to young professionals with more money than sense. I found a spot across the street with a clear view of the building entrance and settled in to wait. They emerged 2 hours later, Emily and Trent, looking like a couple who'd just spent the afternoon in bed. They were holding hands, laughing at something Trent had said, completely absorbed in each other. I took photos, lots of photos. They walked to a nearby restaurant, one of those farm-to-table places that served $20 salads to people who thought expensive food was a personality trait. Through the window, I watched them share a meal like any other couple on a Sunday afternoon. Emily looked happier than I'd seen her in months. She was animated, engaged, laughing at Trent's stories and touching his arm while she talked. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with in college, the one who'd been slowly disappearing from our marriage over the past few years. Seeing her with him was like watching someone come back to life. It was also like getting punched in the stomach repeatedly. They finished their meal and walked back to Trent's building where Emily's car was still parked. But instead of getting in her car and leaving, she followed him inside. I waited another hour before giving up and driving home. The kids were in the living room when I arrived, Josh playing video games while Molly worked on homework. Normal, teenage Sunday afternoon behavior, except for the undercurrent of tension that had become our family's default setting. "Where's Mom?" Molly asked without looking up from her textbook. "Still out with Tasha. She's been out with Tasha a lot lately." "Yeah, she has." Josh paused his game and looked at me. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit me like a slap. Why would you ask that? Because you guys barely talk anymore. Because Mom's never here. Because when she is here, she acts like she doesn't want to be. I sat down on the couch next to him, trying to figure out how to answer. How do you explain to your 17-year-old son that his mother is having an affair? How do you tell your children that their family is falling apart because their mother has decided she wants a different life? Your mom and I are going through some difficulties, I said finally. But whatever happens between us, it doesn't change how much we both love you and Molly. But you are getting divorced. I don't know. Maybe. Molly looked up from her homework. Is it because of her trainer? The question caught me completely off guard. What do you know about her trainer? I'm not stupid, Dad. She talks about him constantly. She's always texting someone and smiling. She's never here anymore, and when she is here, she's distracted. It's pretty obvious. My 16-year-old daughter had figured out what I'd been trying to deny for months. Mom's having an affair, isn't she? Josh asked. I looked at my kids, both of them staring at me with the kind of adult understanding that no teenager should have to possess. They deserved the truth, or at least as much of it as I could give them. Yes, I said, she is. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Molly spoke. Are you going to fight for her? I don't know if there's anything left to fight for. There's us, Josh said quietly. There's our family. Your mother has to want to fight for our family too, and right now, I'm not sure she does. Emily came home at 8 p.m., 3 hours later than she'd promised, and full of apologies about how brunch with Tasha had turned into an impromptu shopping trip. The lies came easily now, polished smooth by months of practice. But something had changed in the house during her absence. The kids were polite but distant. answering her questions with the minimum required responses. They knew the truth now, and they were processing it in their own ways. Emily sensed the shift but couldn't identify its source. "Everything okay?" she asked me after the kids had gone to bed. "Fine. How was your day with Tasha?" "Good. We had a nice time." "What did you talk about?" The question was innocent enough, but Emily's hesitation was telling. "Just girl stuff, her work, my training, general life updates." "Anything interesting?" "Not really." "Why are you asking?" "Just making conversation. We don't talk much anymore." Emily sat down on the edge of our bed, and for a moment she looked like she might say something real, something honest. Instead, she picked up her phone and started scrolling through messages. "I'm pretty tired," she said. "Long day." "I'm sure it was." She looked at me sharply, as if she'd heard something in my tone, but I kept my expression neutral. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what I said. I'm sure you had a long day." Emily stared at me for another moment, then shook her head and headed into the bathroom. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running. I lay in bed that night, listening to my wife move through her nighttime routine, and realized that we were living like strangers who happened to share a house. We were polite, distant, careful not to disturb each other's carefully constructed lies. But the performance was getting harder to maintain, and I was getting tired of being the only one who seemed to care that our family was falling apart. Tomorrow, I decided, it was time to stop pretending. Monday morning arrived with the kind of clarity that comes after a sleepless night of decision-making. Emily was already gone when I woke up. Another early session, another lie, another day in the elaborate fiction she'd constructed around her affair. But today was different. Today, I was done being the passive sufferer in my own life story. I made coffee, got the kids ready for school, and drove them to campus with the kind of focused calm that comes before a storm. Josh and Molly were quieter than usual, both of them processing the conversation we'd had the day before. "Dad?" Molly said as I pulled up to the school entrance. "Yeah?" "Whatever happens with Mom, we're okay, right?" "You and Josh and me." The question broke my heart and strengthened my resolve at the same time. "We're more than okay, sweetheart. We're a family, and that's not changing." After dropping off the kids, I drove to my office and called in every favor I was owed. Janet helped me compile the evidence I'd gathered over the past week. Photos, messages, location data, financial records showing hotel charges and restaurant bills that didn't match Emily's stated whereabouts. "This is comprehensive," Janet said, scrolling through the documentation. "You've got enough evidence to prove the affair 10 times over. I want to make sure there's no room for doubt. There won't be. But Nick, what are you planning to do with all this?" "I'm going to give Emily one last chance to choose. And if she chooses wrong, then I'm going to make sure she understands the consequences of her choices." I spent the morning organizing everything into a presentation that would make my corporate training proud. Photos arranged chronologically, messages organized by theme, a timeline that showed the progression of Emily's lies and the escalation of her affair. At noon, I drove home. Emily's car was in the garage, which meant she was between lies. I found her in the kitchen, preparing another one of her carefully portioned meals while scrolling through her phone. "Hey," she said without looking up, "you're home early. We need to talk." "Can it wait? I'm meeting my trainer in an hour, and I still need to—" "No, Emily, it can't wait." Something in my tone made her look up from her phone. "What's wrong?" "Sit down." "Nick, you're scaring me." "Sit down." She sat, her phone still clutched in her hand like a lifeline. I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. The screen showed a photo I'd taken the day before. Emily and Trent holding hands outside his apartment building, both of them laughing at some private joke. Emily's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "I took it yesterday afternoon while you were having brunch with Tasha." "You followed me?" "I followed my wife, who's been lying to me for months about where she goes and what she does." Emily stared at the photo, then at me, her expression cycling through shock, fear, and something that might have been relief. "How long have you known?" "I've suspected for months. I've known for certain for about a week." I clicked to the next photo, then the next. Emily and Trent at the hotel. Emily and Trent at restaurants. Emily and Trent in his apartment complex parking lot. "I have dozens of these," I said. "I also have copies of your messages, records of your hotel visits, and documentation of every lie you've told me and the kids over the past 3 months. Emily's hands were shaking. "Nick, I can explain." "Explain what?" Explain how you've been screwing your trainer while lying to your children about where you are. Explain how you've been planning to leave me while pretending to work on our marriage. Explain how you've been living a completely fabricated life for months. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair with Trent Morrison. You've been meeting him at hotels in his apartment. You've been lying to me and the kids about your whereabouts. You've been planning to leave me, but haven't worked up the courage yet. Emily's face crumpled. How do you know about your messages to your fitness friends? About how you're working up the courage to leave your limiting relationship? I know everything, Emily. Every lie, every deception, every betrayal. She was crying now, but I felt no satisfaction in her tears. If anything, I felt empty, like I'd been carrying a weight for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. I never meant for it to happen, she whispered, but it did happen, and now we have to deal with it. What do you want? I want you to choose. Choose what? Choose your family or choose him. Choose the life we built together or choose whatever fantasy you think you're going to have with a 26-year-old trainer who helps married women destroy their families. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You can end the affair, commit to working on our marriage, and try to rebuild the trust you've destroyed. Or you can leave and pursue your relationship with Trent. But you can't do both. And if I choose him, then you leave. Today. You pack your things, you move out, and we start divorce proceedings. But you don't get to keep living here while you're screwing someone else. You don't get to keep lying to our children. You don't get to have it both ways. Emily was quiet for a long time, staring at the photos on my laptop screen. Finally, she looked up at me. What about the kids? What about them? They need their mother. They need a mother who prioritizes them over her affair. They need a mother who doesn't lie to them every day. They need a mother who shows up for their lives instead of being too busy with her trainer to attend their achievements. You told them. They figured it out themselves. They're not stupid, Emily. They've been watching you check out of their lives for months. She started crying again, harder this time. I screwed everything up. Yes, you did. Can you forgive me? The question hung in the air between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I wanted to cross. I don't know, I said honestly. But I'm willing to try if you're willing to fight for us. What would that look like? It would look like you ending your affair immediately and completely. No contact with Trent, no secret meetings, no closure conversations. It would look like you being completely honest with me about everything. Where you go, what you do, who you talk to. It would look like you prioritizing our family over your fitness journey and your social media presence and whatever else has been more important than us. That's a lot to ask. It's a lot less than you've already taken. Emily closed her eyes, and I could see her weighing her options. The comfortable life she'd built with me against the exciting new relationship with Trent. The security of our family against the thrill of her affair. When she opened her eyes, I saw my answer before she said a word. I can't, she whispered. Can't what? I can't give him up. I know how that sounds. I know how selfish it is, but I can't go back to the way things were. I can't pretend to be satisfied with a life that feels like I'm slowly suffocating. So you choose him. I choose me. For the first time in 20 years, I'm choosing what makes me happy instead of what's expected of me. I closed my laptop and stood up. Then you need to leave. Nick, today, Emily. I want you out of this house today. Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure Trent will be happy to help you figure that out. She was crying again, but I was done being moved by her tears. She'd made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. What about the kids? You can see them when you're ready to be honest with them about your choices. When you're ready to explain why your affair was more important than their family. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. Something you might want to try. Emily stood up slowly like she was moving through water. I'll pack a bag. Pack everything. This isn't temporary. She nodded and headed upstairs. I heard her moving around our bedroom, opening drawers and closets, packing up 20 years of marriage into suitcases. An hour later, she stood in our foyer with 3 bags and the kind of lost expression I'd never seen on her face before. I'm sorry, she said. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix what you broke. Will you tell the kids? I'll tell the kids the truth, that their mother chose her affair over her family. Emily flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. It's exactly what happened. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. There was nothing left to say. Goodbye, Nick. Goodbye, Emily. I watched her load her bags into her car and drive away from the house we'd shared. The life we'd built, the family she'd decided wasn't worth fighting for. Then I called the kids and told them to come home early. They deserved to hear the truth from me before they heard it from anyone else. That evening, I sat in my living room with Josh and Molly, explaining that their mother had moved out and wouldn't be coming back. They took it better than I'd expected, with the kind of resigned acceptance that suggested they'd been preparing for this conversation for weeks. "Are you okay, Dad?" Molly asked. "I will be." "Are we going to be okay?" "We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be honest with each other, and we're going to take care of each other, and we're going to build something better than what we had." Josh nodded. Good. I was getting tired of pretending everything was normal. Me too. That night, I slept alone in my bed for the first time in 20 years. It should have felt lonely, but instead, it felt like relief. No more lies, no more pretending, no more wondering what was real, just the truth, finally, in all its painful clarity. 3 months later, Emily moved in with Trent. 6 months after that, they broke up when she discovered he was also sleeping with 2 other clients. By then, our divorce was final. I had full custody of the kids, and Emily was working at a gym in Austin, trying to rebuild a life that had imploded under the weight of her choices. The kids see her every other weekend, and she's slowly learning how to be their mother again instead of a stranger who shares their DNA. It's not the family I planned for, but it's honest, and that makes it worth fighting for. As for me, I'm 45 years old, single for the first time in 2 decades, and raising 2 teenagers who've learned that integrity matters more than comfort. It's not the life I expected, but it's the life I chose when I decided to stop accepting lies as love. And that makes all the difference. The end. Final character count, 67,847 characters.